In Venezuela, recovery works continue in Las Tejerias and El Castaño. President Nicolás Maduro Moros updated on the aftermath left by the rains. In Russia, the Ministry of Defense reported the capture of a town in the Kharkiv region. And in Ethiopia, government forces take control of 3 towns in Tigray as fighting intensifies in the northern region. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada. Now we begin with the news. In Venezuela, recovery works of the cities of Las Tejerias and El Castaño in the state of Aragua continue. President Nicolás Maduro Moros provided an update of the aftermath of the rains affecting the national territory. The head of state assured that progress must be made in the urban restructuring of the affected cities, as well as in several towns. In this sense, the president stated that they must be alert at national level for a quick action before any situation that may occur due to the heavy rains.
Permanent alert, and all governors, mayors, popular power, communal councils, heads of street and communities, permanent alert, Bolivarian National Armed Forces, all the integral defense zones of all the states, alert and pending, alert, I say, to mobilize in time the military force, civil protection, police force, firefighters, etc., to mobilize the force to take care and protect our people, to take care and protect the people, a key element of the response to climate change.
The Mexican National Meteorological Service warned that heavy rains continue to affect the Mexican coasts and the territory of the Pacific Ocean. The weather entity informed that a low-pressure channel along the western Sierra Madre is generating heavy rains on the West Mexican coasts and the entrance of humidity coming from the Pacific Ocean. Authorities indicated that they are observing a probability of torrential rains in Oaxaca, heavy rains in Chiapas, as well as punctual rains in Guerrero, all of them accompanied by thunderstorms. The Meteorological Institute also indicated that the hurricane season will continue until next November. United Nations spokesperson Stéphane Dujarric referred on Tuesday to the critical flooding situation in Chad, where more than 1 million people have been affected.
Chad, our humanitarian colleagues tell us that more than 1 million men, women, and children in Chad are now impacted by floods in 18 out of the country's 23 provinces. Heavy rain started in early July and have quickly overwhelmed drainage channels and ponds. The southern part of the country was hit the hardest, but the flooding also struck some eastern provinces, such as in Sila, causing rivers to overflow. In the capital, N'Djamena, several neighborhoods are entirely submerged, with people forced to flee their homes. Some 465,000 hectares of agricultural land have been destroyed, which could further aggravate the already critical food insecurity situation in the country.
In Bolivia, people celebrate 2 years of the electoral victory of the Movement for Socialism, MAS, after the coup d'etat perpetrated against the president, Evo Morales. Citizens gathered into Murillo Square in the city of La Paz to remember the date that represents the recovery of Bolivian democracy after a year of the de facto government of Yanin Áñez. The Movement for Socialism achieved victory with more than 55% of the votes, electing Luis Arce Catacora and David Choquehuanca as president and vice president, respectively. In this regard, President Arce thanked the Bolivian people for their trust and loyalty to his government and to democracy. In Brazil, the Superior Electoral Court initiated an investigation into the disinformation scheme used by President Bolsonaro to attack candidate Lula da Silva during the ongoing elections. According to the electoral body, the investigation into the disinformation scheme seeks to clarify the role of Carlos Bolsonaro for managing and orchestrating fake news to attack former President Luis Ignacio Lula da Silva during the election campaigns. Likewise, the Superior Electoral Tribunal ruled that the investigations must identify the owners of 28 profiles suspected of spreading misinformation on social media. Finally, the top court remarked that the fake news spreading system is very complex and has a very elaborate funding. In Colombia, systematic violence continues. This Tuesday, authorities report the assassination of 2 new social leaders. According to the Institute for Development and Peace Studies, on October 14th, Álvaro Bailarín Sapia was murdered by armed men in the 20 de Julio neighborhood of the Urrao municipality, Antioquia. Álvaro was recognized social leader and the current governor of the Resguardo Valle de Pérdidas. Another similar incident occurred on October 16th in the 27 de Julio neighborhood of Montlíbano municipality in Córdoba, where hired assassins killed Rafael Moreno, a well-known community leader. According to In the Past, 146 social leaders and human rights defenders have been murdered throughout the country so far this year. In Haiti, protests continue in rejection of foreign military intervention proposed by the government of Prime Minister Ariel Henry. Protesters took to the streets of the capital Port-au-Prince as the country faces several overlapping crises, including the actions of gangs taking control of the main port and blocking fuel deliveries, as well as the spread of cholera in the nation. Protesters also denounced the national government's persistence in calling for foreign intervention after the UN Security Council split on whether to send an international force under the pretext of addressing the security crisis. We'll take a short break now, but first, remember you can follow us on our TikTok account at TeleSUR English, in which you will be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and more. Other stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. In Russia, the Ministry of Defense reported that military units captured a town in the Kharkiv region and inflicted a defeat on Ukrainian armed forces. According to reports on the progress of the military operation on the territory of Ukraine, the Russian army captured the locality of Goroyevka in the Kharkiv region with a strategic maneuver that destroyed arsenals with ammunition and weapons of foreign manufacture. The operation also affected military command centers in Kyiv's energy system. Also, authorities detailed that more than 90 Ukrainian military units were eliminated after trying to break the Russian defenses in the region of Kherson. On Tuesday, Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said Moscow could downgrade its diplomatic presence in Western countries. Lavrov also said that Moscow is ready to work with countries in Asia, Africa, and Latin America who are ready to work on equal terms and cooperate with Russia.
Since Europe decided to close itself from us to stop any economic cooperation, well, you won't be forced to be nice. And third world countries, both in Asia, Africa, and Latin America, on the contrary, need additional attention.
On Tuesday, United Arab Emirates Energy Minister Suhail Al-Masroui reiterated that there is nothing political about any decision they take with OPEC. Saudi Arabia previously insisted that the October 5th move by OPEC Plus was taken purely on economic considerations and rejected a baseless allegations that it was politically motivated against Washington.
We truly trust and believe in the technical credibility of the OPEC and OPEC Plus. We always meet, discuss the facts based on our analysis of the market and how we can all contribute to taking the right measures to balance the supply and demand. And that decision is always taken unanimously.
United Arab Emirates Energy Minister Suhail Al-Masroui reiterated that there is nothing political about any decision they take within OPEC.
The last decision was taken on the same approach, and I would like to reiterate that there is nothing political about any decision we take within OPEC. We come from different countries. As you know, we have 20 plus countries, and there is no way that politically all of them, they will agree on one thing. But despite that, this is a technical organization.
In France, trade unions and workers continue a general strike demanding wage increases from Emmanuel Macron's government. France experiences a growing inflation that is reaching historic highs. Several workers' groups remain mobilized at different locations in Paris, including a rally at the Gravelines power stations. Trade unions demand that the authorities implement a fair wage scale that allows French workers to face inflation and overcome the high cost of living. Union spokesperson stated that this Tuesday's protests extended to nearly 200 cities, while the Secretary General of the CGT, Philippe Martinez, announced that the general strike will continue until the government meets their demands.
Colmó el vaso de 4 sindicatos y varias asociaciones juveniles fue que el gobierno requisó personal en huelga en refinerías para paliar el desastre.
On Tuesday, Swedish newspaper Expressen published the first images of the damage to the Nord Stream gas pipelines following the sabotage that occurred on September 26. Specialists investigated the area with an underwater drone lowered to the Nord Stream 1 pipelines, which lie 80 meters below the surface of the Baltic Sea. The camera recorded large grooves in the seabed, as well as steel debris several centimeters thick that looks like broken parts of the pipeline. Judging by the images obtained, it appears that at least 50 meters of pipeline are missing after the explosion, which triggered a tremor of 2.3 on the Richter scale. And we have more news coming up after a final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. Ethiopian authorities said they have taken control of 3 towns in Tigray, the troubled northern region that has seen a resurgence of fighting. The government communication service informed that the towns of Shire in the northwest of the region and Alamada and Kurem in the south have been wrested from the control of the Tigray militias. The statement said the Ethiopian forces took the utmost care to protect civilians from harm. But reports from international organizations such as the UN said the conflict is taking a heavy toll on civilian lives. Millions of people in northern Ethiopia, including the neighboring Amhara and Afar regions, have been uprooted from their homes, and tens of thousands are believed to have been killed since the conflict erupted. Peace talks, after collapsing in August, were scheduled to begin this month in South Africa. On Tuesday, UN High Commissioner for Human Rights Ravina Shadamzani warned that the latest airstrike on the Tigray region risks exacerbating the already devastating impact of hostilities on the civilian population.
The latest alarming airstrikes on the Tigray region risk seriously exacerbating the already devastating impact of hostilities on civilians. Since 31st of August, we have received numerous reports of civilian casualties and destruction of civilian objects due to airstrikes and artillery strikes in Tigray. Disruptions to communications make it particularly difficult to verify reports, but it is clear that the toll on civilians is utterly staggering.
Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Nasser Kinani said the contradiction in the words and deeds of the officials of the United States is the main obstacle to an agreement on the revival of the 2015 nuclear deal. At a weekly press conference, Kinani stated that the U.S. officials sent messages to voice their viewpoints about the nuclear talks on the one hand, while showing contradictory behaviors in practice on the other. He noted that Washington's approach failed to contribute to or supplement the nuclear talks. The Iranian spokesperson stressed that ground exists for reviving the nuclear deal, and all sides return to it, but the issue lies on the U.S. government's political decision. Lastly, Kinani emphasized his country will not keep waiting for an agreement. The Iranian government dismantled a group of hooligans in Gilan and arrested over 800 people involved in the riots and destruction of public property. According to the deputy chief of the disciplinary force of this Iranian province, the gang produced inflammable substances with which they intended to sabotage and destroy public property in the area. Police authorities also announced that they confiscated several Molotov cocktails and other homemade weapons. Meanwhile, the Iranian intelligence forces reported that they managed to capture a leader of the riots in his hideout of the town of Molard in the province of Alborz, who was carrying firearms. An entire family in Palestine suffocates to death as a result of tear gas fired by the Israeli army directly at their home. The family, including children and an elderly, suffocated after inhalating their tear gas fired at their home in the Mazafer Yara villages to the south of the town of Hebron. The coordinator of the Protection and Steadfastness Committees, Fouad Al-Armour, said the incident occurred when Israeli forces fired stun grenades and tear gas canisters directly at the family's home, causing the entire family to suffocate. And world leaders attended the 5th Assembly on International Solar Alliance in New Delhi, pushed to diversify supply chains and manufacturing of the solar photovoltaic market, which is currently led by China. A report issued in July by the International Energy Agency found that China represents about 75% of the total manufacturing capacity of the solar photovoltaic market. The ISA, which promotes solar power as a sustainable way to transition to a carbon-neutral future, was conceptualized on the sidelines of the COP21 to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change held in Paris in 2015. According to the Alliance website, 110 countries are signatories to the ISA Framework Agreement. And we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media for all the latest news. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.